Hey guys, welcome back to the layout. Today I've got another HO how-to video for you. Ever since I installed these, I've gotten a few requests on how I wired my signals and how I use them through operations, and I wanted to give you guys a quick tutorial. So on the layout, I've got 6 signals in total. They're all Atlas brand signals. As mentioned, I don't use the Atlas signal system. They're all manual, except for 2, which I will explain shortly. The 4 main signals on the layout that are manual act as slight block detection, although in operations I tend to use them more as a time delay. What I mean by that is an operator will flip the signal to red as they pass the signal to indicate that that block is in fact occupied. When they leave that block, they will switch the signal to yellow and wait a little bit, and a couple of steps later in the operations guide, I will have them flip it to green. So instead of the prototypical way of doing it, I have it more on a time delay. I feel like this is just more engaging for the operators, and because my layout is so small, some of the signals are just impossible to ever be green, and I wanted to include the full spectrum of colors. And again, I just feel like it's a lot more interactive for the operators, and that's what I like to do. I can use them in a block setting, and I do when I'm running trains by myself typically, but as I mentioned, it's not 100% prototypical just because my layout size is just so limited. So I decided to just kind of change it up a little bit, but it works well either way, and I'm happy with both systems. I may change the operating guide in the future, but for now I'm going to keep it as is with the time delay. So with the 4 manual signals, you have yellow and green on one switch and red on the other. So if I flip the yellow or green switch while it's red, nothing happens. But when I switch it back, then it goes to either color. I've done this using 2 single pole double throw switches, a resistor and an AC adapter, a 12 volt AC adapter. So let's take a look at the 2 exceptions to my manual controlled signals. So for this tunnel signal, it's actually controlled by a directional infrared sensor board from Azatrax, and that controls red and other. So when I say other, I mean it can be green or yellow, so I can switch between green or yellow, but I cannot switch it to red. The only way it switches to red is when a train goes into the tunnel. If the train comes out of the tunnel, it will not turn red, it will only turn the other color. So if we go down here, you can see it turns to red, and no matter what position that switch is on, I cannot turn it until the train comes out of the tunnel. So here comes the train, and it's going to hit the infrared sensor coming up, and now we are at amber and green, and it is no longer red. So I still have some control, but as mentioned, it's just not full control. So this is the second exception to my manually controlled switches. Now the top is fully manually controlled. I can go between green, yellow, and red, just as my other ones are. This bottom one here and the kind of parallel signal in the other direction coming up on the reversing turnout is the indicator for the turnout position. So that reversing turnout acts like a spring switch, and there's infrared sensors that trigger the turnout to automatically change if I just run my hand over it like this, so that when the train's coming I don't have to keep an eye on things, and it'll just run around itself. And as you can see, the bottom turned from red to green, or red to orange, sorry, or yellow, and to green, and then as the turnout goes back, it flips back to red. So if I just override that and I flip it myself, I still have control of the yellow or green because the turnout position is pointed this direction. Now, something that I did is with the other turnout facing the other direction, when this is green, that's obviously red because the turnout's pointing, diverging. But with this being green, when I put it back and this turns to red, the other lower spotlight signal will actually be yellow. And when I eventually turn that to green, when it switches back over, this will be yellow. So they're opposite. I wired them opposite just so that, again, it's a little bit more interactive for the operator. Now, obviously, this is not prototypical, and I know that, but in my mind, I wanted the dual spotlight signals because you have the top one, which could be the yard block. If somebody's working on the main line in the yard and they don't want you to come down the hill, it's always blocked, But also, if the operator does come up and they see a green or a yellow over red, they would still stop and have to manually override the reversing switch to allow the trains through. It's not something that I typically do because it's a lot more work for the operators, but it's something that I like to do because it's my layout, I'm the most experienced, so I kind of like to make it hard for myself. But I know it's not prototypical, but that's the last signal that is not fully manually controlled. So let's take a look at the wiring for the manually controlled ones. It's pretty simple, so let's take a look. Okay, so here's the wiring. It's pretty simple. Basically, when you take these signals out of the box, you're going to have 4 wires coming out the bottom, unless it's a double or triple signal. In that case, of course, you'll have more than one set. But for the single signals, you will have 4 wires. Now with Atlas, it seems like the positive is the common, and so I have some 470 ohm resistors that I got with just some LEDs, bi-directional LEDs off eBay a long time ago, so I use those. You would have to do some research for other brands just to make sure that it's compatible and you don't blow the bulbs, because that would be pretty upsetting and disappointing. I've got the 470 ohm resistor, and I just have a 12 volt 1.5 amp power adapter that I snipped the end off and just use a terminal block, add the resistor, and this resistor has to be on for every signal. So for my 6 signals, which is actually 8 kind of searchlights, spotlights, I've got 8 resistors, 1 on every common. So that's really easy with the 1 wire into the resistor. The other ones, so each color has to go to a terminal. Now, I use 2 switches because one switch will allow you to go from red to other, and then the other switch controls yellow or green. So you can see from power, I've got it coming up to the central pole. These are single pole double throws. You can use double pole double throws too, but it comes up to the center pole, and then one of the options feeds power to the center pole of the secondary switch. I had to use blue here, but you can see one pole goes to red, and then when you flip the direction, you either have yellow or you have green. Really simple. It's not very complicated, but extremely effective. I just wrote out some labels for my fascia, and Bob's your uncle. Super simple. They work great, and I've been very pleased with it. So there you have it. I hope this was helpful to some people. And once again, I know that this may not be the best method for some people. I know that the way I have it on my layout is not prototypical, but it works well, and I'm happy with the result. And I think that's all that kind of matters, at least for me. So hopefully this answered a few questions, and until next time, enjoy your bacon.